So the Philadelphia 76ers, my Philadelphia 76ers, your Philadelphia 76ers are 17-4 in their last 21 games. I'm recording this before the Sacramento game tonight, so when this video comes out, I won't include any of the stats, although not much is going to change because I'm only going to be talking about one specific thing about the Sixers today. But right now, the Philadelphia 76ers are currently tied for second, in the Eastern Conference behind the Milwaukee Bucks. They have been sneakily climbing up the standings despite Tyrese Maxey missing a bunch of time with a small fracture in his foot, James Harden missing 14 games, Joel Embiid missing 11 games with various foot ailments here and there, but he's back and rolling, and, he just missed the cut on my last MVP rankings, but I would put him firmly in my top 5 now, and, obviously with a chance to rise up, it's looking like it's trending in the direction based on national pundits and based on national MVP ladders. It looks like we're headed for another Jokic and Embiid top 2 finish. But regardless, the Sixers are playing good basketball, even though sometimes as a fan it doesn't feel like it. And there's always going to be the Doc Rivers question, because even in, a stretch where the Sixers are playing well, the Doc Rivers just makes some of the dumbest decisions. And every time I see Isaiah Joe play well for the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is frequently, I just get retroactively mad at Doc Rivers because he was clearly going to be a solid rotation player, and he never gives young guys fucking chances. But anyway, we're not going to talk about Doc Rivers. That's a different video for another day. You guys already know my thoughts on Doc Rivers. I bitch about him all the time, but he's a terrible coach. But we're going to talk about the good parts of the Philadelphia 76ers, and mainly the 2 stars, and not just the 2 stars, but the 2-man game displayed between these 2-star players. James Harden and Joel Embiid, their 2-man game, specifically the Joel Embiid, James Harden pick and roll, is once again proving to be unstoppable. It was unstoppable after the Sixers made the trade for him last year, and now there are new wrinkles to the pick and roll, even though they've only played in 24 games together, 25 when they play Sacramento tonight, and they have posted some mind-numbing numbers already. There's some interesting stats from before James Harden's initial foot tendon strain and after, since he's come back, because I feel like to start the season, James Harden was getting back into his Houston mode days where he pounded the rock a lot, had time of possession was really up, close to his Houston days when James Harden had the ball in his hands a lot. And the Sixers were trying at least to figure some stuff out, how to fit around PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton, the new pieces, etc. But, James Harden went out for a bit. Joel Embiid found his stride again, having the ball a lot. And I think it's kind of organically knocked the pecking order into place. I think James Harden realizes that, he is the second guy on the team. Joel Embiid is the best player. And not that James Harden didn't know that, but I think Harden spent a lot of time to start the year trying to prove that he was back from the hamstring injury. And we saw a lot of James Harden propaganda, I say that jokingly, over the summer where, he was getting in shape, he was working out, he was strengthening his hamstring. And I think he wanted to prove that early on, and it led to some jankiness with the offense. It wasn't as smooth as when the trade was first made. But now that he's back, the Sixers offense is humming. Tyrese Maxey is back, and I'll do a separate video on Tyrese Maxey down the road, but I don't think Tyrese Maxey is going to see the starting lineup again. I think the bench role is clearly, etched in stone for him at this point, and I don't think he's gonna come back to the starting lineup. That doesn't mean he won't close games. I just don't think he's coming back. So we'll just start off with the 2-man lineups. Whenever Embiid and Harden are on the floor together, the Sixers offense is just blowing the doors off of teams. Overall on the season, the Sixers are now in the top 10 in offense per cleaning the glass, and they are top 6 in defense. And that's kind of where you want to be if you aspire to be a championship team. You have your defense and your offense in the top 10. And I use cleaning the glass because, again, for those who are new to the channel, cleaning the glass takes out garbage time possessions. And so it's really the meat of the game, the games that are close, the games that matter. And as it stands right now, Philadelphia is 10th in offensive rating. They are 5th defensively. Whenever Joel Embiid and James Harden are on the court, you can see the numbers on the screen. The offensive rating is amazing, and the defensive rating is right where you want it to be, considering that there are some so-so negative defenders in the lineup, James Harden being the negative defender. And, obviously Tobias Harris is putting together the best defensive season of his career. And for all of PJ Tucker's uselessness on offense, he is still solid defensively, and he just edges. He gives the Sixers a tiny bit more rebounding, because the Sixers have kind of been a low-key bad rebounding team the last year and a half, 2 years now. But regardless, the offense is still humming. DeAnthony Melton is chucking up threes, and the net rating is a +10. But the pick and roll, Joel Embiid has changed his game again, and he's improved yet again. I mean, he's second in the league in scoring, the highest efficiency of his career, and the shots he's getting, the regularity with which he is dropping 30. You can attribute that to the James Harden, Joel Embiid two-man game. So according to the stat tracking website pbpstats.com, James Harden has 127 assists to Joel Embiid, which, as far as assists to scorer combos go, leads the NBA by far, and they have only played 24 games together, and it's not going to change much tonight after the Sacramento game. But the next closest is Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield. But the fact that James Harden is just feeding Joel all of these easy shots, and it's mostly through pick and pop or the slow roll to Joel's sweet spot in the 12 to 13 foot range, where he gets 2 feet in the paint and he launches just an easy 13 footer. That's a layup. And this was one of my things that I was excited about when James Harden got to Philadelphia. We all knew he was an underrated passer. He led the league in assists during one of the Houston seasons, is that James Harden was going to get Joel Embiid easy shots. No, Joel Embiid is not the roller that a Clint Capella or even a Dwight Howard in the earlier part of James Harden's Houston days was, but Joel Embiid can still slow roll to his spots. You still have to basically have all your attention on James Harden driving to the basket, and then he can just drop off the pocket pass to Joel Embiid with a wide open 13-footer that doesn't take much energy, where Joel Embiid doesn't have to pound the rock and back himself down for 12 seconds out of the 24 on the shot clock. It's just easy money every time. And if you look at my channel, I did a film video last year on the Joel Embiid, James Harden pick and roll because it already had great early returns. But now there's wrinkles to it. James Harden will, keep dragging the pick and roll to the baseline, draw 2, and then hesitate, and then jump in the air and throw a pass to Joel Embiid, a wraparound pass, and Joel Embiid will have an easy dunk. If they switch it, James Harden has better explosiveness this year. I still think a lot of his explosiveness is gone. I don't think it's coming back, but you could tell he has an easier time scoring now because he's not being asked to do it so much, so he can save his energy for when Joel Embiid goes to the bench, or when they get the occasional switch and James Harden has a big man on him. He can still cook. He still has that step back 3. And James Harden is also taking more mid-range shots this year, which also helps. But Joel Embiid is leading the NBA in possessions as the roll man, and the second closest is way, way behind him. He is averaging 7.3 possessions per game as the roll man, averaging 1.18 points per possession as the roll man. It's just something that, Ben Simmons never provided. For, all the faults, I always said that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons were good fits together, though imperfect, but Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid never developed the two-man game that you would like to see your two best players form together. The Sixers don't have a complicated offense, but when you have two offensive savants like these two, it makes, your offense doesn't need to be complicated, because if you just have two high-level offensive players, you can build around that. You can add different wrinkles, and Joel Embiid can pop. Joel Embiid can roll to the basket if James Harden draws multiple defenders, and Embiid can just catch and go for an easy finish. He's so big. If he could just take one pivot drop step after catching a pass from James Harden, he is at the bucket. And if James Harden draws 2 with him to the basket, he could just leave a little dump-off pass for Embiid. Or there's the new wrinkle now, and I don't have the stats in front of me to back this up, but I mean, to my eyes and watching the 76ers for a lot of my life and for most of Joel Embiid's career, I think this is true, but Joel Embiid is now kicking it out to the corners now, like I said, to DeAnthony Melton or PJ Tucker or Tyrese Maxey. He's just making the easy reads out of the short roll, which that's now a new wrinkle in the Joel Embiid, James Harden pick and roll, because it just draws so much attention that, you know, Joel Embiid's reads are kind of easier. Ever since James Harden came back from his foot injury in the 21 games he's been back, his usage rate is down, because remember I mentioned earlier that his foot injury, it felt like he had more usage. Well, pre-foot injury to start the year, his usage rate was 27.3. Now it's 25.5, and the passes are quicker. James Harden is averaging 21.3 points per game, nearly 12 assists per game, and over 6 rebounds per game. He's shooting nearly 40% on threes at just over 7 attempts per game. I mean, they have found a rhythm this two-man game, and Doc Rivers finally has realized maybe I should lean into this a lot more. Hopefully, Doc Rivers doesn't do the thing where he just randomly goes away from it in crunch time. I just have no faith in Doc Rivers. I have faith that this Sixers roster can carry the inept coaching of Doc Rivers. And I've mentioned this before, maybe not on this channel, but definitely on Twitter and stuff. The Embiid second round allegations are just a year too early. He's had too many fluke injuries. He's had big series before, obviously in the first round, and the second round against Atlanta, who people will somehow put most of the blame on Embiid, even though that's complete bullshit. The guy averaged 30 and 10 on 50% shooting in that series on a torn meniscus. But I think this is the year the second round allegations start. Embiid just needs to not have a fluke injury, and we will see that monster Joel Embiid run, because this is sustainable. Joel Embiid, although he is posting up a little bit less again this year, he is still top 2 in post-ups with Nikola Jokic, and he's getting his shots easier from the perimeter. And I'm not going to go into that dumbass critique that Hakeem Olajuwon said of Joel Embiid. I love Hakeem Olajuwon, but the criticism he had of Joel Embiid was, one, not the most compelling argument as to why, you know, he had problems with the way Embiid gets his shots, but it's also just riddled with that old man, get off my lawn type of bullshit that Shaq and Olajuwon and those old centers do, where it's like, get your ass in the post. No, you need to diversify your game so you could be better prepared for the playoffs, because it is much easier in today's league to just throw double teams at post players, and Joel Embiid has evolved his game. He led the league in scoring last year, and he's doing it again. Well, Luka is just ahead of him, but Embiid's averaging a career high in points per game again, because he has evolved his game, and he's evolved his game to fit with James Harden, and with those two, the two-man game just makes sweet music.